Whichever run we choose, we can see the scoring code for it by going to the navigation menu and clicking Scoring Code. This scoring code is very similar to the GLM scoring code that we discussed in a much earlier video. If you haven't watched that video already, I recommend that you go back and revise it. The first thing the scoring code does is it defines any regrouped categorical variables or categorical variables defined from numeric variables. For example, where the original variable was why not moral or ethical and could take numerical values, it's saying where why not moral or ethical was greater than or equal to 2, then create a new variable called why not moral or ethical that takes some string value and so on. Then it looks at the segment definitions and defines a variable called segment, assigning it the value 3. So all records that meet this criteria would be assigned to a segment called 3. Similarly, any cases or records that meet this criteria will be assigned to a segment called 5. As the segment definitions get more complex, crossing several predictors at once, for example, largest amount, lost range, and highest rate attended, the if conditions become a lot more complex. And you can see down the bottom here, they become increasingly complex, taking into account many levels that many predictors can take. Then, once the code has defined the segments, it proceeds to score them with the model ratio. So it says if segment equals 3, so all records or cases that are in segment 3, then ratio equals 2.0645. And this comes directly from the definitions table, and if you recall in the definitions table, the leftmost column was called segment and took values like 3, 5, 33. These 3, 5, 33 are literally just unique labels to identify each particular segment definition. Conceptually, you can think about it looking at the raw data set. Now imagine in this data set containing the predictors, the response, the weights, and all the other stuff that we covered in the early videos. Imagine on the right hand side here that there is a column called segment, and based on the predictors that this particular record or case has, the segment definition here might be 3, this one might be 66, this one might be 8,142 or 43, this one might be 5, and so on. And this record here might also fall into the same segment as this top one, so this one might be 3, and this one here might also be 5, say. Then it scores on what it calls the ratio, but it's effectively the model value, or the modeled gambling addiction score. So the ratio for segment 3 might be 2.064. So that will take this value, as will this record here. Segment 66, ratio 0, let's just change it from 66 to 68 and give it the value 0. And no doubt we'll have to change 8,143 as well. Was all 8196 is also 0. So if this record happened to fall into 8196, then this would take the value 0, and so on. If you happen to have SAS or some other program that can use code like this, then you can copy and paste it and run it directly. You could even copy and paste it into Excel if you were prepared to do a little tinkering. If you know a bit of VBA, you can use the logic contained in this code to run VBA script. As I mentioned in the GLM scoring code video, the only thing to be aware of is that Preddle is tolerant of having spaces in the variable names. So if you were to copy and paste this line here into SAS or VBA behind Excel or some other program that wasn't tolerant of having spaces in the variable names, you'd probably get an error. So you just need to be aware of what variables need to be called in whatever other software program you are using.